The Holy Gospel according to St. John. When it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. They said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." When he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven them. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." But Thomas, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him. Notice, Jesus gave the command. There's nothing in here that says Thomas did it. Thomas' response was, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said, "Have you believed because you've seen me?" Jesus showed up, right? Blessed are those who have seen and not yet come to believe. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. I wish they were, but these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing you may have life in his name. The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, Christ.
Can't do it. Hey, Bev, I got to do this. I got to bet with Barb Top. If I can preach this under 3.5 minutes, if I'm over 3.5 minutes, she gives me a haircut. But if I can do it under 3.5, I get to give her one. She's safe. Dig your well before you're thirsty. That's been our philosophy for a decade. The congregation that was here when I arrived was never going to be the congregation that moved the congregation forward. It was never going to happen. You know why I know that? Because for over 2,000 years and long before that, it never happened that way. Anytime there's a change, and it doesn't even need a new pastor or a new choir director or a new organist or a new church staff member, or a new person in the pews. Every time you get a new group of new members, the congregation's community, if it is alive, if it has a pulse, if it has any maturity at all, it shifts. Because there are new gifts that are added to the organization. And there are gifts that depart this life with a sign of faith, like June Tim did this past week. Well, 2 weeks ago, but we buried June on Friday. You dig your well before you're thirsty. You prepare the people for what's next, even when they have no idea or no thought of what could happen down the road. Do you see yourselves as an organization that will actually no longer have enough space here, but you will be doing satellite ministries in this community? Can you imagine that? I can. Can you imagine your ministries going far beyond what we do in Sunday school or vacation Bible school or small groups? But you will create, you will generate, you will just naturally take your faith into every one of our current community organizations and make them stronger, because the strength of a congregation, the strength of a follower of Jesus, is always their manner in which they approach something. You've heard the brief story The stories don't count in my timeline of the sermon. The guy that drives in with his family into the little town stops at a gas station, and he says to the guy, the gas station attendant, remember those days? Yeah, I can still remember those days. He says, "What's it like around here?" Well, it's not so bad. And the gas station attendant said to the guy that was driving the car, and his family sitting in the seats kind of listening in, "Well, what was it like in your old neighborhood?" "Well, the people were a little bit stuffy, and they were a little bit snobby, and if you didn't quite do what they wanted to do, then you really didn't quite fit in." He said, "Well, it's about the same here." And then another guy drove in, and same thing happened, and he said, "What's it like in your old neighborhood?" "Oh, the people were awesome. They were just, we're grieving the loss of our community, and we only left them 6 hours ago. We drove all the way from Kempton on back roads to Boyertown, and we made it there. Well, what was it like in Kempton?" "Oh, they were lovely. We missed them. We're just hoping." He said, "Oh, that's about what you'll find here." See, what you bring is exactly what you're going to get. What you bring is what we're going to get. What we do in this town is what we're going to get. Management styles, administrative styles, that's all dependent on, are you a trustworthy person or do you lack trust? Do you need control? Do you grab for control? Or do you release it into the people? What's your way of doing things? That's what you'll get. Dig your well before you're thirsty. Brian said about 8 years ago, Brian Motes said to me, "The congregation that you're talking about isn't here yet. I'm looking at the congregation here right now. I'd say 80-90% of you understand why we do what we do. You actually could explain it to another person if you were on vacation someplace, like in Venezuela." Okay, that didn't fly. If you were on vacation, maybe at Atlantic City, New Jersey, and somebody said, "What's your congregation like?" Well, this is what we do. But again, you will either bring the personality of, "We do some really fantastic things there," or you will bring, "I don't like the minister." And as soon as you say, "I don't like the minister," you know what you're going to get from that other person? You're dead in the water, because they don't want to hear that. Every human being wants to hear a grateful story. Every human being wants to hear a positive story. So it's up to you. You begin your life, you end your life, and you do it one way or another. That was my time for 3.5 minutes, wasn't it? Yeah, all right. I'm cutting your hair. No, don't you dare worry about that. Don't you ever worry about that. No. Because that's the kind of congregation we are. Do you remember when that would have bugged somebody? Sure you do. I was here with you when people would have been bugged by that. And now, nobody's bothered by that stuff anymore. We don't care if we hear crying in the pews, even if it is from Donnie Heimbach. All right. Make America grateful again. Now that's a slogan that I could take to the politicians. Make America grateful again. Thankful for what has been done in prior decades that builds this nation. Do we have some rebuilding to do? And I'd like for us to be a part of it. This guy, Robert Emmons, wrote a little book, and he has this thing he calls the ARC model. Gratitude amplifies goodness. It amplifies goodness. When you're grateful, it amplifies goodness. It rescues us from negative emotions, and it connects us to others in meaningful ways. I've been a parish pastor for 38 years, I think it's something like that. And I just wonder sometimes when I go into the church meetings, the political agendas that are riding around that room. And I'm so thankful to not be a part of it. I'm grateful. I am grateful because I get to see the goodness in spite of the, what's that word? It's an A word. Ambition. I love seeing good and healthy ambition, not ambition of titles. I'm looking for testimonies. I'm looking for people that can be honest and look into the face of reality and call it what it is, and not be Pollyannish and not just be paper-thin positive. Oh, they're so passionate about what they're doing. Yeah, but they've got depth of a paper. I'm looking for depth and connecting us to others in meaningful ways. I'm seeing connections between our big kids and our little kids, so much so that we're not doing retreats separate this year. We do our little kids and our big kids on the same retreats, and they can handle it. And we don't have to worry about it because they're mature, and we don't have to worry about any kind of inappropriate behavior because they've been trained. They've been equipped to relate to one another in the most excellent ways. Begin before you're ready. You want to be grateful? These are some habits that I'd like you to consider because of this gospel lesson and Thomas. Begin before you're even ready. What do you think was in Thomas's life before Jesus showed up in the upper room? Those questions he asked, I'm not going to believe. For all of you who want to believe that was him being a booger, that's a church word, isn't it? I don't think it was. I think he was beginning before he was even ready. I think he was at least paying attention. He didn't get to see him. He wasn't there at the death. And when somebody says he's back, he doesn't know to trust his heart with that. Do I get excited because he's back and then get let down again to find out that it's just a rumor? Or do I just do exactly what I said? I think his questions are sincere. I think he was beginning before he was ready. You don't need to be great or grand, and Thomas's reputation down through the centuries, the church has pretty much trashed it. Well, I'm aiming to change that. I want Thomas to be one of the best, one of the ones, I wouldn't mind my middle name being changed to Thomas, because Thomas was real. He began, and he was real. Practice gratitude in your prayers, reflections, in your chants, in your meditations. I can set myself up from the first minute I wake up in the morning. If I walk into my study and I turn the television on, and I always turn on Fox News first, and then I turn on MSNBC, it sometimes actually changes my mood. Somebody told a person dear to me that was having some chest pains this past week. The triage nurse said, "Turn your television off and do not watch the news." I checked it out with my doctor, and my doctor said, "I tell people that all the time." I said, "Well, why don't you tell me that?" His response was, "You wouldn't listen," which is probably true, because I'm trying to take care of you. And I know I got people that are on both sides of the coin, and they're listening to both of those messages, and I need to be prepared. I need to begin before it's even time to have the conversation, so I can at least hear what's going on from my perspective too. Meditation. Gather with like-spirited people. I love when I get to be with, we have a member, do you know Bethany Calderwood, our preschool, one of our preschool teachers? She works with Missy Endy. Do you know Martha? Everybody knows, yeah, most people know you as Missy, don't they? I don't call you Missy that much, because I don't want to missy you. But I would miss you if you retire. Like, she wrote a retirement note this past week, and I had to pick it up in the mail, and I'm not ready for her to go yet. 48 years with the preschool. I think you ought to talk her out of it. I think she ought to stay there as a monument up there. But Bethany's got this little kid, Sophie. Sophie's 5? Kindergarten. Oy. Energy. But I wouldn't want to go a day without her. Like-spirited people, positive. She came in the room the other day with her butterfly wings on that her teacher allowed her to have, and I wanted to try them on. I looked like a very poor butterfly, but I put them on. Gather with like-spirited people. Live more simply. How many of you have been downsizing, getting rid of things in your house? How many of you wish your spouse would consider that? How many of you wish your parents would consider it so that when it comes time, you don't have to do that one? Yeah. No, there are not a lot of things that are allowed to stick around. Gene, read the paper before 6:30 in the morning or it goes in the recycling bin. Let go of material things that burden you. What are the material things that burden you? What drives you crazy? I have a fly rod in my car because Jason Frizz said, because he must have known about today, he said, "Are we going fly fishing this afternoon?" I haven't had my fly rod out for 8 years. And you know how it felt to have that thing in my hand? I can't wait. I don't care if I catch any fish. I just want a perfect cast. Look for good examples of grateful people in your life and from history. Now that's where I wish I had my headset on right now, because I would go around the room. It'd be worth the 3.5-minute sermon that you're going to get, because I could go around the room to every single person, including our new guests that are in our midst, and I could tell you something that I've observed about you, something positive about you, not just something for which I'm thankful, for something that I'm deeply grateful. Again, if I drop dead tomorrow, know that you have done your job. Proceed. Keep moving forward. Keep stepping your feet forward and follow God. You can follow the social issues of the day, but I wouldn't advise you to do that. I'd advise you to seek first the kingdom and its rules and its guidance, and let your social ethic be developed from that. First the scriptures, then how we treat people. For some, you'll discover that in Scripture, the pointer to God, you'll see the message that we are called to love God and to love our neighbors. But it doesn't say under what circumstances. It doesn't say if they do this, or if they don't wear that, or if they live on the wrong side of the tracks, or if they're in jail, or if they're impoverished, or if they've done horrific, sinful things. Look for good examples of grateful people. Where was Jesus grateful in the scriptures? That's your homework for next week. Go see the passages that Jesus was revealed as being grateful. I thank you, I thank you, I thank you. Then go to the Pauline letters. Go to what Paul wrote, which is 2/3 of the book, 2/3 of the New Testament. Paul says it all the time. I thank you for this, I thank you for this, I thank you for this. I remember when how many of you remember Renee Wrights? I said to her, we were here about 6 months. I was with her about 6 months when she said, "You know, Pastor Bob, I just never know what to do." Like, okay, what are we talking about? She said, "Well, almost every Sunday you say, 'Thank you for me being at the organ. Thank you for what you're doing.'" She said, "I'm not used to that." Now, there have got to be people in this congregation right now that are saying, "But we said it. We said appreciative words. I'm just telling you that Renee said she didn't know it, didn't feel it." And that's not a good thing. So we've been working on that. We've been working on that. And we're doing everything we can to create a group of people here that will be grateful. And when there's horrible things going on, then get an attitude and do the things I've already said, but look for the good examples of grateful people in your life. What would Mae Fern always say? I am blessed. She is, and she was, and she still is. Think with your heart. That's a contradiction. Your heart can deceive you. The heart is incredibly deceptive, but I'm still going to do what Diana Butler Bass suggests. Think with your heart, your spiritual heart. Think with your spiritual heart. I was at the Citizen of the Year banquet. I got a chance to be the MC a couple weeks back. And at the very end of it, I said something that I'm not sure, I haven't really heard a response from anybody yet. But I said, you know, when I came here, I had a choice to either believe what people were saying. If you didn't grow up here, you're not really going to be accepted as. You're not really from Boyertown. You're an outsider. I've never thought myself as an outsider. So call me delusional. And I'm okay with that, because if I'm an outsider, you're just wrong. I'm here to love people and to do the best I can and to get level sidewalks and to get good internet reception and to change the infrastructure of some of our workings of our organizations and to challenge a school board when we have those kinds of opportunities to elect people to the board, to have the strongest academic educational program in this state. That's why I came here. So if that means it's an outsider, you can call me what you want, but I'm about as inside as it gets. Think with your heart. See differently. Develop soft eyes. When I was listening to myself in the sermon from the other night when the kids were taking their first communion, I saw my eyes shift. I saw the tone of the sermons shift when I went down to them. And you probably see it and experience it too. I soften when I'm with them. I soften in part because I cringe when a child is hurt. I cringe when a child is assaulted. I cringe when something happens to a child that is unconscionable. I cringe. And worse, I want to be the judge in that courtroom. And worse, I want to have gone to law school, and I would have wanted to be in domestic relations court for sure. Soft eyes, compassionate eyes. And one of the most compassionate I've ever met was now retired, the Honorable Jeffrey Sprecher, Judge Sprecher. He was one of the most compassionate, empathetic judges I've ever met in my life. And he would bring his faith to every single circumstance. So the judge is a better person than I am. But when I'm with our kids here, they're all that matters. Find a beloved community and really take part in it. For those of you that have joined in this congregation and jumped in at different levels, some of you making sure that the beauty of our flowers are outside of our building, some of you working with our preschool students and to keeping the program going after, Missy, you probably would have retired 10 years ago if I hadn't badgered the living daylights out of you. And for John to be in Mexico, that probably was like he said, that was probably a really big step. But look at the benefit. We have Ashley, and Ashley is the person that I'm going to send as a summer intern. Ashley's going to accompany Virgia over at Chestnut Knoll every single time. We keep Madison stuck over here getting the work done, but we're sending Ashley out into the field this year because she's kind of like the junior intern, right? She's going to be here 2 days a week. But we want her to experience what real life is in a parish ministry. What's your beloved community? Is it Boy Scouts? Is it a club or an organization? Is this church your beloved community? Have you figured out who you can trust and who you can't? Have you figured out that the world is moving forward whether you are willing to or not, and you can even jump on and go with the flow, or you can be just cranky? I remember attending a church-wide assembly when I was in Philadelphia. I got to speak in front of the entire national church to receive a beautiful gift of a stained glass window for the church that I served at the time, that I was blessed to be the mission developer, New Life Lutheran Church in New Tripoli. And I remember how in that whole, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people gathered in Philadelphia and at the big hall down there. And I remembered people talking about some of the best theologians in the church that were speaking. And they just became coined grumpy old men. Because you know what? They were grumpy old men fighting for something that was gone. And you got to let it go if you're going to ever be a part of what community is in the future. And all you do is prevent those in the future from experiencing it. Contemplate the face of the world. And this is where I'm going to bring it to a close, because that's what Thomas had. Thomas had to contemplate the face of the world in light of the fact that his buddy Jesus defeated death, defeated sin, and defeated the devil. Thomas learned that by the gratitude he was experiencing, he didn't have to have it proven. He didn't have to stick his fingers or touch the hands. All he had to do was see Jesus' eyes, and Jesus' eyes looking at him, and he was grateful. And it empowered him to stare at a reality that death did not defeat his Lord. In fact, he said it, "My Lord and my God." Violence over, evil of the world over, and he didn't turn away. He turned toward it. And what did Thomas do after this scene? Where do we see Thomas? We see Thomas traveling all over some of the most remote parts of the Mediterranean, talking about his buddy that came back from the dead, and he wanted to make sure that no one would ever doubt it. I am grateful for all of you, sincerely. I am truly grateful. Thank you for diving into a future that really is going to be in your hands and up to you. It's up to you if you can maintain right and decent order. It's up to you if you can maintain the rubric that none of you go off and do your own thing. It's up to you if you can work together and keep the administrative processes united. One God, one body, one prayer list, one everything. You work this together.